Hey there, good morning everyone. How's it going? Hope you are well. Today we are starting on another lesson, and the lesson for today is lesson 66. So let's get right into it. Here we go. My happiness and my function are one. You have surely noticed an emphasis throughout our recent lessons on the connection between fulfilling your function and achieving happiness. This is because you do not really see the connection. Yet there is more than just a connection between them. They are the same. Their forms are different, but their content is completely one. The ego does constant battle with the Holy Spirit on the fundamental question of what your function is. So does it too constant battle with the Holy Spirit about what your happiness is. It is not a two-way battle. The ego attacks, and the Holy Spirit does not respond. He knows what your function is. He knows that it is your happiness. Today, we will try to go past this wholly meaningless battle and arrive at the truth about your function. We will not engage in senseless arguments about what it is. We will not become hopelessly involved in defining happiness and determining the means for achieving it. We will not indulge the ego by listening to its attacks on truth. We will merely be glad that we can find out what truth is. Our longer practice periods today have as its purpose your acceptance of the fact that not only is there a very real connection between the function God gave you and your happiness, but that they are actually identical. God gives you only happiness. Therefore, the function He gave you must be happiness, even if it appears to be different. Today's exercises are an attempt to go beyond these differences in appearance and recognize a common content where it exists in truth. Begin the 10 to 15 minute practice periods by reviewing these thoughts. God gives me only happiness. He has given my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. Try to see the logic in this sequence, even if you do not yet accept the conclusion. It is only if the first two are wrong that the conclusion could be false. Let us then think about the premises for a while as we are practicing. The first premise is that God gives you only happiness. This could be false, of course, but in order for it to be false, it is necessary to define God as something He is not. Love cannot be evil. No, love cannot give evil, and what is not happiness is evil. God cannot give what He does not have, and He cannot have what He is not. Unless God gives you only happiness, He must be evil. And it is this definition of Him you are believing if you do not accept the first premise. The second premise is that God has given you your function. We have seen that there are only two parts of your mind. One is ruled by the ego, and it is made up of illusions. The other is the home of the Holy Spirit, where truth abides. There are no other guides but these to choose between, and no other outcomes possible as a result of your choice, but the fear that the ego always engenders, and the love that the Holy Spirit always offers to replace it. Thus, it must be that your function is established by God through His voice, or is made by the ego which you have made to replace Him. Which is true? Unless God gave your function to you, it must be the gift of the ego. Does the ego really have gifts to give? Being itself an illusion and offering only the illusion of gifts. Think about this during the longer practice periods today. Think also about the many forms the illusion of your function has taken in your mind, and the many ways in which you try to find salvation under the ego's guidance. Did you find it? Were you happy? Did they bring you peace? We need great honesty today. Remember the outcomes fairly and consider also whether it was ever reasonable to expect happiness from anything the ego ever proposed. Yet the ego is the only alternative to the Holy Spirit's voice. You will listen to madness or hear the truth. Try to make this choice as you think about the premises on which our conclusion rests. We can share in this conclusion, but in no other, for God Himself shares it with us. Today's idea is another giant stride in the perception of the same as the same, and the different as the different. On one side stands all illusions. All truth stands on the other. Let us try today to realize that only the truth is true. In the shorter practice periods, which would be most helpful today if undertaken twice an hour, this form of the application is suggested. My happiness and function are one because God has given me both. It will not take more than a minute, and probably less, to repeat these words slowly and think about them a little while as you say them. Okay, so that was lesson 66. Let's try to break it down. All right, here we go. So, my happiness and my function are one. So, what the Course is trying to tell us with this lesson is that the function that was given to us by God brings us happiness. And so therefore, happiness is our function as well. They're one and the same. Now, like it says here, we're not going to try to explain what our function is. We already know what our function is. But it's more so to make it the same as happiness. Make them one. Because when we do our function, when we accomplish our function, all that we feel and all that we have is happiness. So the Course is trying to help us focus so that we're happy. We want to be happy. All of us want to be happy. And what happens is that we try to find happiness in the illusions of the world, in the illusions of the ego. And what do we mean by that? So believing the experience that we're having right now, meaning this is me, this is my body, and I'm only happy if I have number 1, number 2, number 3, all these different things in my life. And that's what makes me happy. That's what the ego is telling me. And does it really make you happy? You really have to think about it. Everything that you bring into your life, whether it be experiences, other people, materialistic things, do they really make you happy? And what you've come to the conclusion really is that they don't. Why? Why don't they make you happy? They make you happy for a while. But why don't they really truly make you happy? That's because they're temporary. They don't last forever. Things end. Like we said in prior lessons, they have an expiration date. You know, everything that is not real, that is part of the illusion of the ego, expires. So you just end up at some point feeling empty and feeling sad. So is that happiness? No, it's not happiness. And your function is happiness. So that's what we got to remember, that only truth is happiness. Only doing your function is happiness. And that's what we need to shift our focus to. Doing the function that God intended for us to do. And that is to be happy. And that is to, what we said in prior lessons, forgiveness. To ourselves, to others, to situations. They bring us happiness. They bring us peace. and all we feel is love. So, short explanation, because I don't think it really needs to be elaborated much. It's more of the same, meaning you have the choice, you have the control, and you have the power. You can either choose the ego and all its illusions that come with it, or you can choose the truth, which is the Holy Spirit, which is connecting to that higher part of you that tells you that you're safe, that you're loved, that you're complete, and that all you need to do is be happy. So be happy. Fill your heart and your mind with wonderful thoughts of happiness and joy and love and peace. I know it's hard, but that's why we're doing these lessons, because they're going to help us do that. And this lesson helps us do that in this way. So it tells us to do a 10 to 15 minute practice period, okay, where you concentrate on these thoughts. God gives me only happiness. He has given my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. Okay? So you focus on that thought, those thoughts, for 15 minutes, and allow yourself to be filled with happiness, be filled with joy, be filled with peace and love. And live in that for these 15 minutes. Allow yourself to do that. Feel what that feels like. Okay? And then it says, every hour, at least twice within the hour, to focus on this thought. My happiness and function are one, because God has given me both. Okay? So we do that twice an hour. I know it's a task. I know it can be hard, but it's not a quiz. It's not a test. You do however you can, as best as you can, twice an hour. Focus on that thought. My happiness and function are one because God has given me both. Like I told you in yesterday's lesson, I usually put a timer on the hour, and I try to do that myself. You know, if it helps, whatever helps you, you do that. And don't feel any guilt if you don't do it in 1 hour. Do it the next hour and keep trying, you know? It's all about training yourself to think differently, to take what is happening to you on a daily basis, whatever you are facing, and some of us are facing some difficult situations, but take what you have and shift a little bit of your time to focus on wonderful things, on being happy, on enjoying life, the experience, and remembering the function that God gave you, which is to be happy. Happiness and your function are one and the same. So, thank you for joining me on another day of lessons, and I hope that you will try. I love you all, and we will see each other again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.